All right, welcome. This week we are going to be talking about stress. Lots of things about how stress affects your health and wellness, big choices you need to make about stress, how that can affect your journey and your overall quality of life. It is our Take Your Health Back Now podcast for March 15th, 2024, if you're watching this on the replay. So this is a really big topic, and we're just going to jump in, talk about all the different angles, and see where it goes.
And it'll probably be an hour, like always.
Right.
Yeah. So, hey, everybody. So, this is a big one for people that are already healing. It can slow you down and
Mhm.
also be the catalyst to being symptomatic. And it can also just exacerbate, the problem you already have going on.
Yeah.
So, we're going to kind of break it down for you because it's a huge one. And it's really hard for people that have gotten to the point where they now feel terrible. They're symptomatic, they don't feel good, they're having all these issues. And it's really hard for them to then, step back and really address the stressors in their life and even have the energy to deal with them. So we'll just break it all down because it is something that you can't ignore.
Right. And a lot of people are just like, oh, stress, and you don't really think about it. It's one of those things that you just mention, or you're like, I'm stressed. But people don't really think about how to change that or get rid of it. It's almost like a badge of honor.
Right. I think just because people's lifestyles now,
Yeah.
especially like in our country and probably more, countries like ours,
Right.
industrial revolution countries, that, just the lifestyles are so hectic. And now, I mean, even for people with kids, as opposed to when my kids were little, it is crazy. The crazy kid schedules now. I mean, because you have somebody on the dance team, if you're in traveling ball or whatever it is, the schedule for the parents it's crazy for the kids. So if the
Yeah.
kids are having symptoms,
That's
that's
another thing. It's just that as a society, we just keep adding responsibilities onto everybody.
right.
The amount of like homework, connectedness, like kids cannot disconnect from school anymore. Like my daughter regularly has homework due at midnight. Like that's the time it's due. Like, you know, I don't know. I feel like there should be time frames. Like teachers shouldn't be able to, it's great that they have the computers and the connection and everyone has access to more information, but homework should be due in class during school hours. Homework shouldn't be due on break. Like that happens all the time too. Spring
Right.
break, yeah, we've got 6 assignments due. No, it's a break. Like, no.
It's supposed to be a vacation, like
Yeah. And then, like you said, sports is so much more now. You have to start when you're little if you want to be competitive in high school. It's just so much more on everyone starting so much younger.
right. And then people's jobs, super chaotic. People live in places where you're spending so much time in the car and commuting. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
so much. It's just busy, 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 busy all the time. And then when you don't feel good and no, people just don't have time to sit and take the time to really figure out what you need, so
Right.
um so we'll just kind of go through I've got it broken down bullet points like I like to do. So I just wanted to start with stress is just one cause of chronic dis-ease. We always say dis-ease in the body. So that would be once you're symptomatic, once you're having chronic health conditions, whatever that may be. It's just one cause. And we don't even usually say it's a root. We're
No.
always the root cause. It's more like a agitator.
Yeah.
We've got
Makes
the root
everything else grow.
causes. Yeah, but it's like stirring the pot. It's like if you have a KitchenAid mixer, it's like you've got all the roots, the causes. We always say lifestyle, environment, diet cause chronic health conditions, right? And stressors are in your lifestyle. But if you put all those in KitchenAid mixer, now you're mixing it. Stress is the one mixing it up. And then on top of that, Now you've got the roots like leaky gut and dysbiosis and adrenal fatigue and all those type of things. And now you've got your mixer on like full speed, like you're whipping cream, and it's just, it's the agitator. Now it's like spraying out. If you've ever made whipped cream,
Oh my gosh.
what I'm talking about. I don't even know. I have never said this analogy in my life.
I can imagine it though, like when you accidentally did it too full and then it starts spraying out.
You know, if you whip cream and it's on full blast, and like for me, I don't know why I always have to put a towel over it, otherwise it sprays out. So that's what I'm imagining. So the spray out is now your symptoms.
Yes.
So, but what I was going to say is that it causes full-blown symptoms, right? But we usually use the threshold bucket, not the whipped cream in your mixer bucket analogy, but they're the same thing. So the threshold bucket, if you've worked with us or if you've heard us before, we use it a lot, but it's, if you imagine your body has a threshold, so it's like a bucket or a bathtub, and your threshold, your body's filling up with what is coming in your life, right? Diet, lifestyle, environments filling up, and it gets to that top of the bucket, that brim, it's not overflowing, and you're not symptomatic. We talk about this all the time. I'm sure you guys have heard us, but one more thing comes in, and it's always a stressor. And remember, your body can't tell the difference between an environmental stressor, a physical stressor, or an emotional stressor. It's a stressor to the body. So what we're talking about here is emotional stressors. But we just want you to get this analogy first. So oftentimes when people become symptomatic, or maybe they've already had some symptoms, but when it's like full blown and now
it's not just like sloshing occasionally, it is like spraying out.
right, and that's when you start getting labeled with things like autoimmune conditions and things like that, where it's just too much, your body cannot handle anymore. But oftentimes it's birth of a child, which is stressful in the woman's body, especially birth of a second child, a divorce, a car accident,
Death of a close friend or family member.
death is a big one in the family, or a close friend, but something big will happen which causes you so much stress, emotional stress, and then all of a sudden you're just so keep that in mind. And if you are symptomatic, if you're having issues, you can, once you hear this analogy, you can go back in your life and go, oh yeah, remember.
Right. And a lot of times people kind of, they expect to feel badly if there's a big emotional stressor, especially one of those negative ones, but they don't realize that that is like a continuing problem. Like now they've started to overflow. That rain is growing those roots 10 times before. And I think people sometimes feel guilty. They're like, well, I didn't die. Or, I had a baby. It's great. It's amazing. So they kind of just push it off and ignore it until they can't.
And even that guilt is a stressor. I mean, that's an emotional stressor on your body. You're feeling guilty about that. But yeah, so that causes, like we said, more and more symptoms. But then our other analogy is the tree analogy. So it's kind of like what Jenny was talking about, but like our trees back here, right?
Yeah, it's funny because when we're on this, I forget that you're not looking at them. Since I'm looking at you, I see the trees behind you the whole time.
I always forget. So our disease tree is the branches of the tree are your symptoms. Okay. So you've had that big stressor come in, your lifestyle, your threshold bucket is overflowing. So now you've got these branches of your tree. Right. And we always say that everyone's tree is unique to you. So, if Jenny was sick and I was sick, we would have different symptoms.
Right.
But the roots are always the same. So the roots of that tree, there we go. That's when you get things like leaky gut, inflammation, dysbiosis, adrenal fatigue, things like that. But the rain that Jenny was talking about is what then just keeps those roots growing, keeps that tree growing. So there's stressors coming into your life, water those roots, and then more and more, your tree is growing and more symptoms are coming up.
Bad. You want to focus on these roots. I don't know. I guess it looks weird with me pointing, but the wellness tree You want to understand what those roots are, and then you specifically are watering each root, balancing them, feeding them the nutrients they need. So then you're growing good symptoms, and all those disease symptoms go away. Where stress is kind of like just crazy rain growing everything, nothing is being focused on. So those bad roots take over and grow.
Right. So hopefully that makes sense why stress isn't necessarily a root, but it exacerbates everything, like we said. So then, once you have these symptoms, you're symptomatic. Once you're symptomatic, the you know this tree. So if you think about this tree, you've got these roots, right? You've got the stress coming in. Now you're symptomatic. You feel terrible. Maybe you're in a lot of pain. Maybe you're having migraines. Maybe you have brain fog. You can't think. You can't, your clarity is gone. You have low motivation. You're anxious and irritated and quick to anger, things like this. So then that starts to affect your life
Right.
in ways that actually cause more stress. So, it can cause problems at work where you can't keep up, or, people are noticing that you're not able to do what you used to do at work. A lot of people we work with end up quitting their jobs because they cannot do them anymore.
Right.
And
Like before they come to us.
causes, right, right before they come to us, not after working with us.
Right. But that's like the other side of that is the people who keep at their job, even though it's so stressful, and won't leave, and they can't heal all the way because they just won't take themselves out of that situation. Like we've seen both sides.
Right, definitely. And then, and then it's a big one when you are experiencing chronic conditions, people on the outside, and we've said this lots of times, people looking at you don't see it, not like I always say, it's not like you broke your arm, you have a cast now, and people can go, "Oh, I'm sorry you broke your arm. What
Right.
happened?"
Let me help you. Let me support you while you heal.
I feel empathetic to you. But with these chronic conditions, you're trying to keep up your lifestyle, but people looking at you a lot of times feel like you're making it up, or they just don't
Right.
understand.
You're being lazy, or you just don't want to do your work. You're just putting it off on other people.
Right. So it can really affect relationships, whether it's your spouse or your children, your family life or your friends. A lot of people end up stepping back from friendships. Um, Also just emotional things, like people become agoraphobe, or, different things like that, where they can't even feel like they can function in society. They're afraid to go out of the house. All of these chronic symptoms really, really affect your life in so many
Yeah.
ways. And that causes so much more stress.
Right. See this cycle?
Right. And it's like everything we always talk about. It's very cyclical, and it's just a downward spiral. This causes this, causes this, causes this, and you're just spiraling down. And unless you get off of that, or that gerbil wheel, if you want to think of it that way, it just gets worse and worse and worse, because this causes this causes this, and that's just how it goes. Also, another huge stressor for people that are experiencing chronic symptoms, is the fact that conventional medicine is not, they don't believe you. They'll say, "Oh, your tests all came back, you're fine." Well, you're not fine because
Right. They're just not equipped. They're looking for acute illness, not ways to make you well.
right. But that is so stressful for the person experiencing this, because they know, how bad you feel, and there is something wrong. Nobody knows you more than you know you.
Right.
and and so that's a huge stressor, getting on that. You're just not getting answers. You feel alone in your situation. Oftentimes we hear people say they feel like they're going to die, like they will really feel like they're dying, but are being told it's all in their head, or but that is a huge stressor that then adds to that. you know
Yep.
so and this all adds to the metabolic dysfunction that is causing the symptoms in the first place, which then also leads to you are now sympathetic dominant. So if you know what the parasympathetic sympathetic system is, it's supposed to be in balance. And that the symptom par, par what's the word? sympathetic
Yes.
system, that's for emergency response,
Right.
right?
I didn't know which one you were going to talk about, so I couldn't say which one it was. Yes. So fight or flight or rest and digest
Right.
is what you're supposed to be in. And I think most people know that. The whole parasympathetic, sympathetic, it's almost backwards because you would feel like sympathetic means sad and calm and relaxed, but it's not. That's the one where you're like,
Right. That's the emergency.
going out, and it all connects to your vagus nerve, which is connected to your gut, which is connected to your brain, which is connected to all your organs. So you can see how it would affect everything if that system is out of balance.
Right. And you start to experience things like what I was mentioning before: irritability, anger,
Yeah.
depression, anxiety, panic attacks. People that are the agoraphobe, or you just panic in situations, or just you get
Right.
over.
And this is where people who aren't getting answers with, medical doctors, they're telling them everything looks great. They end up getting referred to psychologists, psychiatrists, because they're saying, well, you're having these symptoms that could be on that side of things, all in your head. And then they might end up getting medicated that just kind of dulls everything. So you're still having, it's just like other prescriptions. You're still having all these issues. It's still getting worse. But now it's almost like they've put it on you. Like you need to be in therapy. You need to work through these things. These are just your issues. But it's really, metabolic. So how can you do that?
Right.
Just talking to a therapist. So it does become even more stressful if you're getting pushed into that side of things.
Right. And you just feel so anxious, and as different people have different symptoms where you're writing in
Yeah.
that. Even people that oftentimes people say, well, I don't have a stressful life. I have a good life. I like my
Right.
family, my friends, there's no stressors in my life, but I feel so stressed all the time. And that's why you're writing in that sympathetic mode.
Right.
Can't get out of it. But the only way out of it is to heal your internal dysfunction.
Yeah.
So again, just, this causes this. But the thing is, okay, so the way to deal with your stressors, in my opinion, is you have to heal internally first.
Right.
You can't completely heal internally and get rid of symptoms if you still have these stressors in your life. So if you
Right. They're definitely tied together.
right. So if you have a job that you hate, a job that you're working 12 hours a day, and then you come home and you have to run your kids around, you don't like your marriage, these big stressors, if you do all the right things, like we do in the program, where we address healing the gut and, all the pieces of metabolic internal dysfunction, you will get better. You will see symptoms improve, but you're not going to completely get better unless you address those big
Right.
stressors.
And it's going to be a lot more work because you're constantly growing the roots as you're trying to heal the roots. So it's a constant fight. Where if you're working on the stressors, removing the stressors, and working on the metabolic at the same time, then everything's kind of going for the same end goal, same direction. You're not fighting against yourself. So those things, and I think we've mentioned this on a podcast before too, kind of, having that empowerment. It's stressful to make big, scary decisions. Your brain is wired to keep you in a known situation because then it knows what to look out for. And changing into an unknown, especially something big like a different job or just quitting your job without a plan on what you're going to do next, downsizing, moving, ending a relationship, these things are big and they will have acute issues in the short term, but long term, it will remove that stressor and replace it with something hopefully less stressful. You have to get out of the cycle, not just the one situation. Um, and that if you don't do that, you get stressed because you're doing all this metabolic work and you're not seeing the results as quickly or as completely as you want to. And then you start to blame it on, well, this isn't working. I'm putting all this work in, it's not working, when you have to address everything. And stress is a big one.
Right. But we believe, when working with us in our programs, you have to fix that metabolic problem first.
Yeah.
That way you'll go from feeling like you have no energy, no clarity, you might feel depressed, that type of thing. You'll go to where you have energy, you have clarity, your mindset is much better. Perspective is another thing I should have mentioned when we were talking about stressors. Perspective, people that have a bad perspective or bad outlook, bad mindset, can really be a stressor on your body. But anyway, once you are healing, not healed, but healing, like for instance, going through the program about 3 months in, generally people are feeling so much better that then you're able to, then you have the energy and the clarity to say, okay, I have to do this for me. I have to take some time, step back, really evaluate my life and look at the stressors. And I can now feel strong enough and confident enough to do what I need to do, to eliminate these stressors, whether it's a job or maybe walking away from a toxic relationship or whatever. Now you have the strength to do it. And you're able to do that, then your health will come back, so much faster, like leaps and bounds.
Right. And you'll be able to keep up with it so much easier. Now, those first 3 months are hard. They're hard for everyone. So adding more to it is not a good idea. We do, we talk about mindset. That's huge at the beginning, and that helps with stressors, but more non-specifically. We're talking about mindset on your journey with your health, your wellness, things like getting in movement, doing the deep breathing, learning about meditation and how you can incorporate that wherever you're at in your journey. It's not always like, oh, um, those things we introduce to you so that you can get started with that foundation. But we cannot take control of these huge, unique stressors. It's kind of like time. Like, we don't have control over how long it's going to take you to fully heal. We don't have control over those stressors in your life either. We can give you some tools. We can give you support, and we can give you this information that we're giving you right now, but you have to take the action yourself. And this is one of those things you really have to sit and be very mindful of what it is that is causing stress in your life, in your situation.
Right. And I think we talked about on the last podcast, that's the point when you're ready to do that, when you've healed enough where you feel stronger, confident, and able to do this, you've got the clarity, you have to be able to give yourself permission.
Yeah.
The last one. But you have to be able to give yourself permission to say, I have to focus on me. I have to be able now to put myself first.
Right.
And you just do, and it's not selfish, but that's the only way to eliminate these stressors. But you do also have to really take stock of your life and where they are, because is it your perspective that's making you feel, because perspective, if you change your perspective, you don't have to change the stressors, because if you change your perspective, maybe it's not a stressor.
Right.
But or is it truly a stressor, like your job, you feel completely unfulfilled, it doesn't resonate with you, the toxic relationship doesn't have to be a husband or a wife, it could be somebody else in your life, whatever it is. But you have to give yourself that little bit of time and grace to step back and really evaluate that for yourself.
Right. And that's hard to do when you're jumping into a new program. So like with our new retreat that you might have saw us announce recently, that's kind of our goal. So we want people to go through our boot camp program with us and really get a handle on their health, their foundation of health, these little pieces of mindset and stress relief that we bring in. But then at the end of that, 90 days, 3 months that they're in that program, then you can go on this retreat, take a break, unplug, disconnect, give yourself that space to really sit with, like, wow, look at this, where I've come. Now let me look forward and see what I need to do without all the crazy stressors of day-to-day life pulling on you. So it gives you that space to really make a plan for the next part of your journey. You don't have to do that with us, but it is a really good layout.
excellent layout. And that is our goal. And we'll dive deep into that with you if you come on the retreat with us. But, if you're listening to this later and the retreat's over, or, you were unable to come on the retreat, even just taking a weekend to yourself,
Right.
just that self time is huge, because then, like Jenny said, you step away from all of those stressors, that chaotic life, because if you're constantly in that chaos, you don't even have time to think about that. Or, you might be able to kind of pinpoint what is causing you the stressor, but you don't have time to really think about
You can't see the forest for the trees, it's a pretty good saying.
it. So, yeah, so you do need to give yourself that little bit and just focus on you and really look at it. And there's good exercises, we talk about a lot that you can do to really clear your mind and really lay this out so that you can look at it and see. I mean, even things like making a list,
Yeah.
pros and cons, and I am statements, and there's all.
And is this a situation where I can just change my perspective and really change how it's affecting me? Or is this a situation that needs to just be changed completely? It's hard to evaluate that. And sometimes it's hard to evaluate that with the people. Like if it's a situation with a person, you don't necessarily want them like, hey, what you doing? What you writing? You might feel bad doing that. Right. So it is good to take that time to yourself. If you can't manage to do a retreat, like Kendra said, you just need space to yourself. If you can, take a weekend away, even like a car trip, if you can't take a whole weekend, sometimes just driving far away and going to like a park, sitting in a park for a day. There's lots of ways to do it.
Yeah, nature is huge for helping you get clarity, and which of course is why our retreat is in the woods, and just unplugging not only from your life but from electronics and different things like that. You'll notice a lot more clarity where you can step back. And another stressor for people, it may not even be something like a job or your lifestyle or a person. It can be past trauma, or it could be emotional trauma or stressors from your childhood, or things like that you're hanging on to or remembering, or even maybe somebody that died, many years
And you
ago.
never really dealt with it.
Right. And it's still causing you that. So again, giving yourself that time to really think about that, and whatever you have to do for yourself, to let that go. And again, it's, we have lots of exercises that help with that, but you ultimately have to do that and work through it. But the end goal is that you can't do that, first of all, until you heal, and then you can't do that until you have time to step back and just be with yourself, focus on yourself, connect with yourself.
And you can't maintain health without doing this part. Like they're all connected. If you don't do, no one gets to skip a step and get to that end goal. You have to do all these steps, and doing them in this order is really get you there fastest. It's the best way to do it. If you try to do one and then go back to the other, you're going to slip back.
And you could do it backwards. I mean, you could try to address the stressors first, eliminate the job, eliminate the husband, eliminate, whatever it is.
If you don't eliminate him.
But you could do that first, but then you still have all that metabolic dysfunction going on internally. That's symptoms that cause you to feel terrible. So you still have to address that too. So like Jenny, this way is better so that you are in a better place mentally to deal with these stressors than moving forward. And then you would just be amazed. Once you can do this, you would be amazed what opens up for you. In all areas of your life. Even, if you get to a point where you're feeling better, you feel clarity, you feel strong enough to walk away from your job, you wouldn't believe what will open up for you, whatever that is. Life will just get better and better, and you will feel but yes, the whole point of this podcast is those stressors are huge. go back to the beginning, to my mixer analogy. I will now use again. That was good. But that's why you have to address these stressors in your life
Yeah.
first. So I don't know. I don't think we have anything else to say.
No, we actually were very succinct with this one. We were only about a half hour in. But I feel like it is like once you understand the concept and, like we said, doing it in that path that we've laid out, a lot of the rest of what you fill in here is unique to you or personal to you. Like, we can give you general ideas like jobs, relationships, trauma, but we can't dive into each one of those on the podcast. So just sit with this, think about where you're at in your situation. Are you blaming stress for something that's really metabolic and you're not going to get better because you're not focusing on the right thing? Are you so stressed that doing anything like building your own program to get better is just too much? That's why having a plan, having support, having a system is really important for a lot of people, because you are at that point where just adding one more responsibility is too much. So that's really a big key to what we do with people. And we believe that's a big key for any program you're going to do. You have to know that it's a proven system. You have to be given a plan, and you need support from the people who have already walked that path so that you know what to expect and you don't just give up in the middle of it.
And something else, just to piggyback on what you just said, on top of the support, you also need people that believe you, believe that you have these things going on in your body, and that we believe you. I mean, we see this over and over, and you've heard my story. And so we know that you are experiencing this. We 100% believe you and empathize with you. And that's why we want to empower you. And again, it comes down to you and just making that decision to do, to tackle all of this. But like Jenny said, this is the fastest way to do it. And if you don't work with us, you can work with somebody else. And if you want to do this on your own, I'm sure you can, but it takes a lot longer. It's hard when it's just you. So yes. So hopefully this helped a lot. And those of you that have already worked with us and are on your healing journey, make sure you step back and look in areas of that you have stressors coming in, because they can also, if you're healing, you're feeling great, you're feeling better than you have in a long time, you have stressors come in that can totally set you back.
Right. They can creep up. So this isn't just like a one-time thing, even though doing it, with our program about 3 months in is, you need to do it then. That's like a great time to do that. But it's also something you should do if a big change happens in your life, or like, twice a year. Just really do this with yourself. Sit down. Is there something that's growing as a stressor? Are there things I need to change my perspective? Have I started being very negative? Why is that? We live in a very stressful lifestyle, all of us. If you're watching a podcast, then you're not like a off the grid homesteader, which has probably got its own crazy stressors. So they're constantly coming back in. If you've let them grow over your life and you've never focused on them or resolved them, that's what you need to do at the beginning. But you do have to keep up with it. You need to check in, just like we talk about with mindset and setting goals. Those will change. Things in life will affect them. Same with stress.
Right. And one other thing, if you are healing, especially if you're going through the program, you're doing great, healing, feeling better, and all of a sudden symptoms start coming back, don't blame the program. Don't blame that. You always look to see, okay, what has changed? And it can be in the last few days even. And it's not just going through our program, it's anything. If you're feeling really good and all of a sudden your symptoms are back, just look at what has changed in your life. So it could be a food that you ate, maybe you cheated, did something. It could be you had a super stressful day at work. You had, who knows what happened, but
Right.
really within the past few days or maybe a week, you can see if you really take yourself back and look at what has happened, something
Mhm.
in your life to
Right.
cause.
And it can be, like we said, it can be a emotional stressor too. So like, is there an anniversary of something that happened that you recently and you've been thinking about it? Has like some sort of memory or trauma been triggered recently? Like it doesn't have to be one of those physical things either. So remember to think about those.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times for people, it's the holidays because,
Yeah.
somebody passed away before Christmas or,
Or it's just
and you're
bad interactions with this crazy family that you're supposed to love and enjoy.
right. Or just something. So just
Yeah.
always go back to that and then acknowledge that it happened. Acknowledge that maybe that's what it was, even if it was you slipping off the wagon and,
Yeah.
you know, or whatever. Just acknowledge it. It happened, and then just get back on and keep moving forward.
Right.
Because once you're healing and feeling better, even if symptoms come back, you can always turn it around.
Yep.
Sure. We always say there's only two sides of the street. You're either going towards disease or towards health. So if you slip back onto that going towards disease side, you can always get back on the other
Yeah.
side. You have to take, a look at your life and see what you need to do in that moment.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So hopefully this helped. It's a lot of homework for you because that's
It does feel like this is like, since we're done early, take the next 20 minutes you had planned on listening to us
right.
talk and maybe sit with us in the quiet.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
maybe we should have had some like meditation music to play at the end just to let people sit and think.
Take a walk in nature and really think about it. But yes, if you want the quickest path, definitely work with us,
Yeah.
especially treat that we have open.
Yeah, through April 28th, if you're watching this on the replay, that's when we have registration open full to unless it fills first. So very limited. We've got about 5 rooms right now. So if you're interested, it does put you into our boot camp first. So you have to apply. We'll go through, figure out if it's something that will work with you. If you're watching our podcast and in our audience, most likely it's something that will work for you. And then, yeah, and then in July of this summer, 2024, you get this, amazing long weekend retreat where we can dive into these things we've just talked about. Yeah.
And just
So,
on you.
yeah. So reach out if you're interested. And of course, this topic, if you feel like it resonates with someone, would resonate with someone, friends and family, share, might really help someone on their journey right now. So, we appreciate your subscribes, like, shares, and all of that. And we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.